Welcome to Repum Group's Item 24, where we take you a step beyond the standard FDD. We asked ourselves, why stop at 23 items when some of the most important insights live beyond the page? Here we're breaking down the inner workings of franchising and sharing real-life strategies and stories that drive the industry forward. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to be here today and give you some insight on why Item 24. I think at the end of the day, we wanted to start this show for several reasons, but one of the main reasons is to get content out there in the franchising community that can help others be better at what they do. Whether you're a franchisor out there today and you're an emerging franchisor that's looking for advice around how do we grow responsibly, how do we find franchisees that are right for our system, or how do we support franchisees? There's so many different things and nuances to become a franchisor today. And I've always said, I don't think that the experts out there are always right at your fingertips. So we want to make sure, as we are experts in this field, that we provide you good content and we provide you good information to make this industry better. And I always say, rising tide raises all ships. So the more we can share out there in the community of franchising, the better off all we are. I also think, too, at the end of the day, we want to see more people out there talking about franchising. And so part of what we want to do when we started this idea or had this idea was to actually have guests come on to our show, everybody from franchisors that are current Repum partners, franchisors that are currently part of our client base, or also just our actual employees, right? The biggest thing with Repum is hiring the best people, and we want you to hear from the best people in the industry. So we'll have guest speakers around that. And finally, I would say is really getting out there and providing content around how do you, as a franchisor today or a franchisee, thrive in your model. And hearing it from franchisors that are already doing it is going to be a key to your success. Hearing it from franchisees that are doing it already will help you be more successful. And when it really comes down to it, all the things I just talked about, the most important thing is to make sure that we all drive this industry forward, that we take the knowledge we've gained with some of the great people that we've had in our lives to be better franchisors or franchisees and drive that into new people coming into the industry, the younger generation that wants to get into franchising and really drive that home. Hey, my name is Nick Sheehan. I am co-founding managing partner of the Repum Group. And I want to take a couple minutes here to tell you my story about why I got into franchising, why I'm so passionate about franchising, and why I would never dream of getting out of franchising. So it all began for me in college. I was taking some night classes, getting my MBA down in South Florida at a small school called Lynn University. And one evening, and I'll never forget this, I had a speaker that came in, and he was an entrepreneur, and he was going to talk about entrepreneurship. And he came in, he was in his 70s at the time. He was a guy from Brooklyn, New York, had a lot of success in business. He had owned 12 businesses, and he went through his whole story, and it was fascinating to me. And so after class, I talked to him about it a bit. And in college, I had a boat washing, plane washing, and car washing business with a buddy. And I simply asked him one question: how do I get more clients while I'm doing this business? So he gave me some advice and talked to me for 10 minutes. About a week later, my dean came in and said, hey, this guy wants to meet you for lunch. So I said, sure. So I went to his country club and I met him for lunch, and I was surrounded by some really powerful guys that I never thought I'd get in front of at that early age. Him, of course. We had a gentleman that was the largest nail distributor in the country, had all the Lowe's, all the Home Depots in the country. And one of the biggest ones I saw was the co-founder, one of the three founders of Home Depot. And so all these guys were retired down in South Florida, and I would meet them every single week for about 6 months, which was really cool. And the guy took a liking to me and he said, hey, look, I've got opportunities that are thrown at me all the time. If you would like to take a chance with me, I'll invest in a business with you. And so at 23 years old, he did. We got into, all businesses, the ink and toner recycling business. And so I started selling toner door to door like a glorified Xerox salesman. But there's no better lesson than getting kicked out of buildings left and right and learning how to sell. And so I wound up selling toners and ink cartridges to businesses. And 5 years later, we turned it into a real business and franchised it. It was called Cartridge Depot. real original name, but franchised it, grew it to 35 franchisees by the time I was 27 years old, and cut my teeth on franchising, cut my teeth on entrepreneurship through that whole experience. And it just lit something underneath me that said, I want to stay in this industry. So I'm originally from New York. I moved back up to the Northeast, actually in Connecticut. And for about the next 16 months or 18 months, I worked with a company called The Entrepreneur Source. And that group is a franchise consulting firm out of Connecticut. And I worked with them and I became a franchise coach, helped people find franchises for a period of time. I also worked very closely with the founder. And I just learned a lot about emerging franchisors outside of what I had experienced. And so through that experience, I met some gentlemen that owned a franchise development firm that was called St. Gregory Development Group, and wound up joining forces there. And they were the founders of this company that took emerging brands to market. And they had brands like Title Boxing Club, Salons by JC, to name a couple of them. But they were really good at taking brands that had maybe 5, 10, 15 open locations and saying, how do we expand nationally? And how do we do that in a big way? How do we get to 100, 500 locations? And at the time, they were also starting their own brand called Cycle Bar, which they formed in, I believe, 2015 or 16. And so that's when I joined, 2014, actually. I joined forces there, became Chief Development Officer at St. Gregory. And the interesting thing is we expanded Cycle Bar and other fitness brands at the time. St. Gregory and Cycle Bar was then bought out in 2017. And then a thing called Exponential Fitness was formed, which is now the largest curator of all boutique fitness out there. I also became a franchisee at the same time of Cycle Bar. A partner and I bought our first location in Hoboken, New Jersey. And from there, we grew to 15 locations in 7 states. And at one point, we were the largest franchisee in the system. So had experience being a franchisor, had an experience being a franchisee. And then with St. Gregory being there for 5+ years, learned a lot about how do you take a brand and bring it to market? How do you take an emerging brand that's maybe a regional brand or not even regional? Maybe it's in one city today. How do you turn it into a franchise? How do you set it up for success as you expand nationally? And frankly, how do you make sure that when they do expand quickly, they have the resources, they have the people to support the franchisees? And so then from there, at the end of 2019, actually St. Gregory dissolved. And the reason was everybody from St. Gregory went in-house at Exponential. And I just decided I didn't want to do it. I was a franchisee of the system. And I thought it was time for me to really start my own journey with a new company. And so a partner of mine, Rob Cambruzzi, and I had known each other a long time. And we became partners at the end of 2019 into 2020. And we'll talk about that journey a little bit later on the full Repum story. But, you know, Rob and I had been in franchising together for over 10 years. He had formed a company called RPM, which stands for Real Estate Project Management, and worked with helping franchisees open their doors. And it was an opportunity for us to create a new entity called the Repum Group and form a full franchise development firm. And so we did in 2020. Fast forward to where we are today. We are at about 60 employees at Repum. We have 16 brands that we currently work with. And we have grown substantially in the 4+ years that we've been in existence as we sit today. So that's a little bit about my story. I'm proud of franchising. I'm proud of entrepreneurship. I'm proud of my accomplishments within the industry, but more importantly, seeing other people blossom within this industry is really what gets me going every day. Shameless pitch for the Repum Group. If you are looking to grow your brand, whether you're an emerging brand, whether you're a brand that is much larger with a couple hundred locations, if you're looking to scale bigger than you are today, reach out to us at therepumgroup.com.